Welcome to the discussion. My guests today are Brandy Mora, the Director of External Relations at the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, Michael Baggett, the Manager of Competition Communications, also at the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, and we bring back John Check, the Executive Director of Cyber Protection Solutions for Raytheon and RTX Business. Everyone, thanks for taking the time to join us on this second panel as we continue to talk about cyber workforce, cyber education, cyber training. I think it's really an important starting place is that we heard from Kyla Guru earlier on the panel. She was part of the winning team from Stanford University. We're going to hear from them a little bit later today as part of this discussion as well. But if folks aren't familiar with the NCCDC, the good acronym, National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. Brandy, let me start with you. What is it? How does it work? Give me some of the background.
Great. First, thanks for having us. I'm really glad to be here. NCCDC is a lot easier to say unless you have a lisp, like myself. But I have to say it all the time. So NCCDC is a product of kind of some collaboration in 2004 in San Antonio, Texas, where educators and cyber players came together and started talking about putting together a competition that would go beyond academia or theory and even certifications, more of an application of what the students were learning, but even beyond just an application of it, but how it fits into the real world. Because students were leaving school, being hired, and then being thrown into a workforce where applying those things was very different, as Kyla pointed out earlier, across businesses. You have to know banking, you might have to know lawyering, you may need to know a lot of things. And so the NCCDC came from that. We were there, Dr. Gregory White, who's our director at UTSA, stood up and said, hey, we want to do that. A lot of our team were like, no, we don't want to do this. But we took it on and we have grown it and expanded it over the years. This will be our 19th competition in 2024. So that's kind of where we came from. What it is, what the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition is specifically is the product of 9 regions across the country that come together. What they'll do is they start towards the end of January, 1st of February, having qualifiers. Then they go into regional events. The winner from those regions, like Western regions and Stanford, they come and they compete. And then there's one final team that's selected from a wild card competition between the second place winners. So those 10 teams come and they compete at the Nationals in the spring every year.
And so 10 teams all across the country, all collegiate level. Teams are made up of roughly how many people? And give me a sense of I'm sure the competition changes every year. This year it's going to be focused on this, and next year we'll be focused on that. But give me a sense of what was it for 2023? What was generally the focus?
2023 was a kind of a franchise for urgent care. So as we like to call it.
Doc in the box.
That's right. And so that was the scenario. So the scenarios do change, and they do differ also across the regions. So you have to understand that they're going to compete in a qualifier that's completely different from the regional, that's completely different than nationals. Teams consist of 8 competitors, but up to 12, so 4 alternates. They establish that roster at the beginning of the season when they register. Those players can rotate in and out, like they can be a qualifier team, then they can be a different regional team and a different national team, but they have to finalize it before each competition.
And generally speaking, what does the competition look like? Meaning, my team is competing against your team, or my team is looking to get points based on this series of efforts they're doing, and whoever has the most points win, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, so that's why NCCDC or CCDC differs from other competitions. A lot of competitions are based on a kind of a capture the flag or a king of the hill, and CCDC and NCCDC are based on a business, a scenario. It is an actual real world scenario. So they have to stand up a network. They have to incorporate e-commerce and website and email servers, and then While they're doing this over the 2 days, they're being hacked by a red team who are going after them constantly. And then they also have to respond to business tasks that they have to do. There's an orange team who acts as their customer or their employees who may come in and say, I need an email address, or why is your website down? And the orange team really get into the roles too. They're pretty funny. And then at the end of that, and they're scored on various things, whether they do things right, if they're attacked and they don't recover, all of that. So that's how it differs than just say. So they are competing against each other, but not in an attack each other type of way.
And one of the things I love about the competition, Jason, is really the scenarios are straight from the headlines, right? Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. So last year, right, was healthcare. Year before was ransomware. So each year, it's really something that we're really grappling with as cybersecurity defenders. And that's one of the things I love about the competition. It's very topical. It's very real world. And the CCDC team does a great job of ensuring that it's very relevant.
Absolutely.
Michael, talk maybe also a little bit from your experience as you've learned a little bit about this. As John said, it's grabbed right from the headlines. It's grappled with. Is that the key here? Is it to not just put them in the sandbox of, well, if this could happen, this is what it may look like. This is something that you're going to deal with in the actual world.
Yes, sir. Just like last year, we did it was a medical franchise scenario. Think urgent care. The first, second place teams, what was really cool about it was the wildcard team that Brandy mentioned earlier ended up coming in second. So our first and second place teams both came from the Western region, with Cal Poly Pomona came in second, and Stanford coming in first and becoming our champions.
And the thing why this is important, really anyone can jump in here to talk about this, is it's not just teaching you or competing with, well, hypothetical. Like again, as John said, this is happening. So the end goal here is not just to win, which is always nice, but to get that real world experience that can transfer easily into the next job. Is that part of why this competition is different? Is maybe not the best word, but
exceptional.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that is exceptional. Absolutely. So for instance, like Michael was saying, with that medical scenario, the students were exposed to HIPAA. They were exposed to, I think India mentioned this week, like heart monitoring, things like that. And that's something that, even if they go out into the real world, they may not fully understand the business that they're entering in either, especially coming from academia. They don't have that exposure. You can even intern and still not fully grasp everything, right? So yes, it does apply like that more to the real world, and is the focus, like John was saying, on like what we really go through. It isn't a hypothetical sandbox. Right. It could be whatever. Yeah.
And I think what's fascinating as well is HIPAA. And I hope they're also these systems that you're connecting to the heart monitor are based on. One of the students said, "Hey, why are you still using XP? I hope you got a little Windows ME in there too." John, talk a little bit about the technology, or that's kind of running as part of this discussion, why it's important.
Well, so I'll frame it a little differently. So one of the things we talked with, Kyla was on the prior panel with us. And that's where I met her. So one of the roles that I played within the current NCCDC role, and also a couple other times, is as the board of directors. So they have to come in and present to us. And so when tying back to the technology, so a lot of the students will come in and talk to us in technical acronyms and all those things. And so when you're thinking about who they're presenting to, if they're presenting to a board of directors, they probably don't know those acronyms. So it's really takes them totally out of their comfort zone to know, okay, explain to me sequel, what does that mean? What is that? Sequel? I don't even, is there the number of movies coming out? What does that mean? Really, so it's really helping the students understand that not only doing the technical recovery, but also how you communicate that throughout the organization to truly understand what's being done to recover from an event, but keep all the stakeholders engaged and understand what they need to do to help you. It's wonderful how it's all pulled together to make it truly real world.
Did you play the role well, John? Did you play dumb?
He's amazing.
What is this cyber thing?
Oh yes,
How many factors do I need?
we play it up.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I imagine that's the best part of your job in some ways. Is you get to kind of play the.
Keep in mind that the students in the rooms they're under attack, so their networks are on fire. So the last thing they want to do is get up and come talk to me for a half an hour. So typically they run in, they're breathless, they just are, stop asking me questions. I can see the look on their face, so they can run back to the room and help the team because the red team's attacking.
That's right. And another thing too is there's a white team, and the role of that they're in the rooms with the students, and that's a coveted role. It's given to our sponsors who are there to actively recruit that talent while they're there, which is great for me.
So you're trying to hire them while they're trying to get this done? I'll give you more money.
And then you get to observe them,
Yeah.
right? So you're in the room, you're watching them. They're not just behind a keyboard. You're not looking at a resume. You get to see them interact with each other, how they work on a team, how they communicate with each other, communicate to the C panel, whatever. And so you're getting to see just their soft skills in addition to observing and having seen their technical skills.
And I think that's really the all the pieces and parts as you describe this competition. It's not, again, like a capture the flag where you're just trying to get an objective. You're actually working in an area that, whether or not you work for healthcare or a ransomware attack,
Right.
all this is connected. There's a lot of planning that goes into this. How much do you lean on people like John and Raytheon and other organizations to ask, okay, what should we do for next year? How should it work? And what's different this year from previous years? How does it talk a little bit about the planning that goes into this?
Well, we don't really interact with them to establish like scenarios or the technical part of it or the operational part of it. But Caitlin Barron, she's excellent. She is my cohort at Raytheon. She and I plan this together. We start our weekly meetings in January that goes throughout the regional competitions. And that's another facet to it is we're helping to also coordinate and establish volunteerism and support for the 9 regions that are happening. We bolster them just as much. I sell them just as much. Without them, there is no NCCDC. So it's very much like that.
How, from a if you're interested, schools, universities, other folks are interested, what does it take? Is it just, hey, I just have to sign up and put a team together, or is there a certain set of qualifications, like pre-qualifications, folks who are interested?
Not at all. In fact, I'll give you a fun example. A few years ago, UT Austin, they had a team, and obviously we saw some drop in numbers during COVID, and that wasn't because of the competition itself, it's more because the students couldn't get together. But there was a student who really wanted a team, had somehow competed someplace else or had competed there, and so he found a faculty member. You have to have a coach. And so he went and found somebody that would support them, and then he put together like 4 or 5 people. That team grew. Then he graduated and now is an adjunct, and so now he's the coach. So you just it's a matter of interest in pulling that team together.
And as we kind of end up this segment here, John, let's just jump in a little bit and talk about why is competition so important from your perspective as someone who's going to potentially hire some of these folks?
Well, first of all, Jason, it's really important for us to participate in the ecosystem of cyber. So by sponsoring this competition, it really helps us, give the next generation of cyber defenders experiential training they would not get otherwise. So for me, that's critical. It's not going to be something that they learn in school, right? By participating in these competitions, they get to a real-world example that they will experience in the workplace. Granted, it's a competition, so there's a little bit of gamification, but a lot of the aspects of it really do apply. And so from our perspective, it's critical that we participate in that ecosystem, but as well, it's really training that offense informing defense, that collaboration you see. The most fantastic thing about the NCCDC tour competition is the very end, when the red team gets with the students, it's magic. They just can't wait to figure out, okay, when you were doing this, we were doing this, and we already owned you at that point, and It's just a
Right.
fantastic learning experience.
That's awesome. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear from some of those students and see how magic that learning experience was, and or if you drove them crazy. I'm Jason Miller, and as I said, when we return, we'll hear from the student competitors who brought home that championship trophy at the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. You're watching the discussion, NCCDC and Developing the Cyber Talent Career Path, sponsored by Raytheon and RTX Business on Federal News Network. Well, welcome back to the discussion, NCCDC and Developing the Cyber Talent Career Path, sponsored by Raytheon and RTX Business on Federal News Network. I'm your host, Jason Miller. For this segment, we turn to the student competitors who won first place at the National Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. I'm joined by Andy Scott, the captain of the first place championship NCCDC team from Stanford University, Alex Keller, the Stanford University coach of the first place team, Kyla Guru, a student at Stanford University and a member of the NCCDC championship team, Glenn Hoosman, again, a Stanford University student and a member of the NCCDC championship team. And I'm joined by John Check, the executive director of Cyber Protection Solutions for Raytheon and RTX Business. We've just been talking about cyber workforce. We've been talking a lot about what it takes to bring people on and training, and we just heard about competition, this fun competition. So Alex, I'm going to start with you as the coach. Obviously, congratulations. Winning first place in a competition like this is very impressive. Let's talk a little bit about how you got to where you got to and how you made this team hum.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having us on the show. It's a real honor. So just a little reflection. I've been coaching for 9 years. I helped found the team at Stanford University. And the first cyber competition that we did was CCDC. And we saw some success early on. And that really, I think, sparked our interest in continuing. So over those interceding 9 years, we've actually been to the finals 4 times. I think the first time we came in middle of the road, it was like 5th or 6th place. We really didn't know what we were doing. And then 2 subsequent times we got on the podium with a 3rd place finish. And then of course we sealed the deal in 2023 with the championship. So I guess reflecting on what was different, I think a big part of it is just knowing what to expect, right? Like we were able to hone kind of our strategy and our tactical considerations around really learning and being a study of the competition. That helps a lot. The other, and we've heard about this a little bit in some of the earlier panels, we really embrace the idea of offense for defense, or as we say, blue team like red team like blue team. And we don't teach just defense or offense. Everybody on the team is expected to know both. So what I mean by that is if we're going to be defending against things, we attack ourselves. We exploit ourselves. We learn the tactics that the attackers are going to use intimately, and then we create defensive snares, if you will, to slow them down, to create friction. There's a saying that the red team always wins, and they do, but you can create friction and slow them down. And there's a saying that you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just have to be faster than your buddy, right? So if the red team, can get some of the other teams early on, they may not get to us if we can elude them. The other areas that we've really improved in is we've focused a lot on automation and tool sets that allow us to do things that improve our capabilities in creating friction for the red team and making sure that we can keep our services up while we're under duress. And I'm not at liberty to share all of those various tactics. And the last piece, I think, is we've always had just a phenomenal team in terms of the humans that are on that team. But this team really gelled in terms of the camaraderie and the esprit de corps.
So much of this we always hear the kind of platitude of cybersecurity is a team sport, and this seems to be the truth here when you talk about going on a competition. So Andy, maybe start us off, since you were the captain. First of all, first year on the team, or is this like your 4th year?
No, so actually this is my 5th and final year.
Red shirt, you had a red shirt?
Yes, I am no longer eligible to compete, although I'll still be a student at Stanford as I am continuing my studies for my PhD.
Very nice. And what was it like this year as compared to the previous years? Was it harder, easier, about the same? Did John and his cohorts make it extra hard?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference this year from the years in the past was that we kind of knew what to expect with regards to the structure of the competition. As Brandy had earlier mentioned, our Western Regionals is slightly different than our Nationals, and so the slight modifications and changes from how they go over in the room, learning from that, and really kind of coming in prepared. The first season that we went to Nationals, I would definitely say, was very much a learning season, getting the knowledge of what's different, what's the same, how do we deal with that, and coming in and being prepared for that. Now, I think another factor is we definitely still have very well-defined roles on our team. For instance, I function kind of like a product manager or project manager in this sense of I direct a lot of people, figure out what's going on, who to assign what and when, but mostly in terms of the business tasks. So Kyla and I work together very closely on that, whereas Glenn works as our technical lead and very well and competent Linux head. So I think having those well-defined roles and having members who have returned and have that experience and can kind of coach up our new members and whatnot, and especially as Alex mentioned, we have some secret sauce automation that we are not at too much liberty to talk about at the moment, but that is really like up our game this year.
Kyle, I'm going to skip you for this one and go to Glenn from the technical perspective. From a technical perspective, when you talk about these competitions, is this hard?
I would say so. We have the unique privilege of having a really fantastic volunteer red team, and these are volunteers from industry, from three-letter agencies who there's how many 20? There's a good number against 10 student teams. And their job is just to sit there and to make your life hard. We are the IT team, the security team of this fictitious business, and we've got these very soft targets we've been handed. It's just our job to patch up and secure those up. But yeah, no, the red team is not to be trifled with, and there is too much to do and not enough time. And I think that makes for quite a challenge on the technical and the management levels. Yeah.
John, too much to do, not enough time. Have you heard that before?
Absolutely. So one of the key things is the red team and the blue team, or the students' teams, both get access to the environment at the same time. So kind of like, Alex talked about Stanford having their secret sauce of things. The red team all year preparing their tools also to go against the students. So it's like a mad dash at the very beginning with both people getting access. Neither group has any prior knowledge of what it's going to be, which makes it really interesting.
Kyla, come back around. We heard from you in the first panel with the feds about the workforce and the future. Talk a little bit about how these competitions, and you've done this before, was this your first year? So maybe give us a little bit, how'd you get recruited? Did Alex pull you out of the
Absolutely.
Yeah. and what did you expect from it? Did it meet your expectations? Were you like, what am I doing this for? This is crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I did the collegiate pen testing competition a couple of years when I was a freshman, so a couple of years ago. And a part of me always had the itch to try the other side and just kind of get a holistic perspective. And so that's why this year I joined the NCCDC team, which has been such an adventure and so much fun and such a different perspective into the cyber field. And then I've also done a host of other competitions, including the cyber policy competition and the national competition, which is Cyber 912.
There's a cyber policy competition?
There
Who
is,
can write the
yes.
best policy? Lawyers all get together.
It's responding to cyber incidents.
okay,
So in a similar vein, kind of like the NSC does, the coordination across agencies.
So which side do you like better, the red team or blue team?
Oh dang, that's a tough one. I feel like I'm a purple team person.
She's been in
Take the
DC
buck
for
there.
a week.
Everybody wants to do red team because it's cool to go on offense and attack things.
Yeah.
But some people also say blue team is best team because you actually, as a red teamer, you'll never go up against real adversaries. You're working on behalf of the client. Whereas with a blue team, especially in national security kind of scenario, you're going to be going up against the best of the best humans on the other side of the wire that are trying to attack and defeat you.
From a preparation, maybe Andy, to start off with, you're about to get your PhD, or you're working towards your PhD, but eventually you will work, hopefully, in the cyber field. And how does a competition like this kind of prepare you? What would you learn from it? Hey, okay, this is what maybe the real world is going to look like.
So I think for me, as this is my 5th season, I've been off keyboard for about 4 seasons now. And so I've really learned leadership skills in figuring out how to essentially nicely tell people what to do so it actually gets done. For instance, on these business tasks, we have so many coming in at the same time. You might have 5 things to do all at the same time and maybe all due at the same time. And then we have, say, Kyla, who has to leave the room for, potentially 1 to 2 hours to go present to John, and we are down a team member. So getting, for instance, when things are on fire, servicers are down, and getting team members to be able to do the things that I also need for them that isn't necessary to bring up the service can sometimes be really tough. But that's definitely something that I've worked on over the years, and I think we are at a very good balance at the moment. If anybody, Glenn, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, with respect to the preparation of this competition, it's I think there's working with a team. There's, again, I mentioned this, the competing priorities, the too much to do, not enough time. But also, I do think the realism of this, and I think John spoke to this in an earlier panel. It really is an experience you don't get in the classroom. It's very different than all the CS classes I take, to be able to get put in this setting and to really have everything's on fire. Here's this live environment. Like, good luck, have fun. This isn't I'm working on some algorithm I need to turn in a week. No, this is much different, and that lends itself to a very different set of skills than what you'll see in the classroom. And I think from the technical side, that's really unique and special about these competitions, which try to emulate these applied settings.
So Alex, do you have to did you take Andy aside and say to her nicely, you can't yell at people, or you got to be more firm? I mean, is she too nice?
She's sweet as the day is long, but when she's serious, you know you got to get in line.
Switch that flips?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
And we need a little of that, and she's we're going to miss her dearly.
So John, talk a little bit about that soft skill side, right? Managing people is not easy. In fact, I think that's technical stuff. The technology is always the easy. It's the culture that we have to change, right? So what do you see when you look not just at the Stanford team, but more generally at the competition about that managing that softer side? What are you looking for, or what do you see among the people?
Well, I definitely have the benefit of going, so each of the different teams is in a different room unto themselves behind a locked door. So I get the benefit of going around to all the teams and peeking in and seeing how things are going. Mm-hmm. And it's varying degrees. Some teams you absolutely have people that may be raising their voice and arguments may be breaking out between team members. And then you have teams like Stanford, which based on this year, right, very focused. Everybody knows their job. Clearly a team that's practiced, worked hard over the past 5 years of experiencing the NCCDC part of the competition, has really learned those lessons, and it shows up. So that's, like India mentioned, she absolutely knows when to tell people what to do, keeps them on track, and the team listens. They know that's what we have to do to focus here. But there's no arguing. There's no time to it. Get your job done, and if they can't solve something, they give it to Glenn from a technical perspective, right? And but it really does show, because when you go into other rooms where teams that are typically first time to NCCDC, they definitely struggle with that because they are not experienced. They don't not seen the same level that they get at NCCDC.
And I think just to add one thing is I focus is definitely one of the things that's common within our team, but also just the lifeblood of our team is humor, and we have a lot of fun with each other in the room. And I think regardless if somebody's telling you that this needs to get done within a certain amount of time, there's always a little kick, and everyone's laughing and having a fun time, and I think that's what makes it so special.
The best antidote to any sort of problems is winning. So success helps you a lot. We just about out of time. Let me maybe ask Andy to get the last word in here. What would you recommend for other people who are maybe just getting started in cyber, maybe just thinking about pursuing a career in cyber? What's maybe the one recommendation? I'll put you on the spot.
I'd really say go find yourself an Alex. Because he has been an immense help. I actually had no experience in the cyber area until I met Alex. And yeah, I think coaching and mentoring and finding that person who you can follow their lead and teach you is really, really important.
All right. There's a lot more to talk about. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to the discussion NCCDC in Developing the Cyber Talent Career Path, sponsored by Raytheon and RTX Business on Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Raytheon.